Hi, everybody.
Hi, everybody.
I'm Scott.
I'm John.
And we're married.
Look at that.
And we have a podcast called SweetTeaNoShade. And it's about knitting, mostly. About 99%. Well, about 51%. And then 49% movie reviews. And
life updates.
Oh, yeah. Life updates.
Yeah, I don't know. We've never actually done a chart to quantify, but perhaps we could.
Minute by minute data collection.
Exactly.
Yeah, so we are here. It is Sunday, April the
14th.
And we're in Minneapolis, Minnesota. My name is Scott. Oh, we already said that.
Yes.
I am SweetTeaNoShade on Ravelry, Instagram, and YouTube.
Yeah.
And you are?
On Ravelry, I am ILoveYouIKnow. And on Instagram, I am John Asbury.
Everybody probably thinks you're so sweet. Oh, I love you, I know. What a sweet name. When really it's just about
Star Wars.
Yeah. And it's about, what's his name?
Han Solo.
Not
being able to say I love you back.
Not being able to say I love you back, which is you up one side and down the other.
Whatever.
All right, so I have finished object, a new cast on,
Okay.
two new casts on,
Cast is on.
cast-ons,
Speakers
of the house, brothers-in-law,
Law.
cast-ons,
Attorneys General.
And we have some updates about do you want to talk about the shop hop first?
Sure.
Okay.
Because that's acquisitions, too.
Yeah. So,
And what I have 2 works in progress.
Oh, sorry. I forgot that you exist.
My contributions are 20% of the podcast.
I forgot that you exist. And then in addition to, in the second half, we will review the Academy Award winners, the best and the worst movie from 1982.
2, I think.
Excuse me. And so, which is the Academy Award winner and the Golden Raspberry winner for Worst Picture. So, here in the Twin Cities, there is every spring there's a shop hop. This year it involved 12 stores. And it starts on Thursday, ends today. My first time that I went to, I think, all of them, and I think there were about 16 or something.
Yeah.
And that was the spring after the first... It was the first spring during which I had been knitting. Because you taught me, and then went home for Christmas, and Betty Ann, my mom, introduced me to yarn
and the world
knitting.
of podcasting.
That's what I mean.
Yeah,
That's what I was going to say is podcasts, the YouTube podcasts. Got obsessed with the Bakery Bears and the Grocery Girls and Naughty Knitwits, and then in the following spring, so a few months later, I went on the first Minnesota shop hop and spent a significant amount of money and bought my first interchangeable needles, bought all kinds of stuff. And so that's what just started it all off, was the shop hop. And as far as having a ridiculous amount of knitting related crap.
Yep.
So we were pretty good this year as far as tempering our purchases or tempering our craziness, but we went to three. We maybe after lunch we could go to
maybe
one or two
if
more.
we have time.
Yeah.
I have to do.
Oh, you have to do your thing. Okay. Yeah. Whatever. We'll figure it out. And maybe I'll just go.
Yeah, that'd work.
Okay. Anyway, we're figuring our life out
as we speak
in
real time.
TV.
Right.
So do you want to talk about? Should we talk about it?
Yeah. So we went to Darn Knit Anyway, which is in Stillwater.
Well, let's go in order.
I know. I forgot that we had 3 kittens.
Yeah.
3 Kittens Needle Arts first, which is in
Mendota Heights.
Okay.
Which is across the Mississippi River from where we live.
Yep.
Is that the Mississippi or the Minnesota?
It's Minnesota. I have no idea.
I think it's where they come together. But anyway, there's some rivers.
And
it's across those rivers.
Right. So I did not get anything there. But so the theme for the shop hop was fairy tales, I think.
That's right.
and theirs was Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. They had a really...
It was?
Yeah.
I totally missed that.
Because they had that pattern.
I think I was so focused on
Logistics.
And like, because you get a passport that gets stamped.
Yeah,
and,
Scott was doing with all that.
One thing I noticed, and I'm going to leave this in because I know people probably, it ruffled some feathers or irritated people. We have to avoid bang. Oh, you know what? I was going to put this. I'm going to cut this up. Last time we like banged and dropped things on the table and it affects the microphone. Oops. So it was like every little bang and thing you can. So try not to. I will try not to do that.
I will continue to do it because I get excited. So anyway, Scott was handling the whole shop hop logistics. I think it was Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs because their pattern had a...
I have the pattern in here.
Yeah, the pattern was really cool. It was a pattern that was...
and this is a free pattern, so... Or at least it was for the shop hop. So it's Laura Rasmussen,
who does the...
Oh, Bad Apple. Yes.
Bad Apple.
Right,
and
right.
she did the... she usually does the peep patterns. The
Progressive East End
project.
So
she did that cowl. She designed that cowl that I had last time.
Last
episode. The colorwork cowl. And it's...
Oh, the really elaborate one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Something. And it's a cool pattern because it's designed... They had specially dyed skeins of yarn to... So it's not really... I don't know if I can just show the picture or something like that. But it's this cowl, and the way it's not really you're not changing yarn. The yarn just sort of fits to the pattern. So that was really cool. We got there; they were out of the yarn, the specially dyed yarn, but it looked really cool. And we could order more if we wanted to. But it's really cool pattern. But yeah, that's what did you get?
I'm reading here, and it brings up a topic that...
row gauge versus stitch gauge?
Yeah. So it says, due to the shape of the cowl, the row gauge is more important than the stitch gauge for this project. You want the top edge to be 29.5 inches, so you'll need to make sure your row gauge is 32 rows for 4 inches in stockinette. I highly recommend blocking your swatch as you would your finished cowl for the most accurate gauge. Mm-hmm. Finally, if you're using Echoes, which is the custom dyed yarn, knit your swatch, but do not break your yarn after knitting it. Block your swatch, steer it still attached to your yarn ball, and measure. Then rip out your swatch to use it for your project. You will need most of both skeins of Echoes to complete your cowl. So that's cool, but I don't know. I mean, if you don't meet the row gauge, you can't adjust. I mean, so like if you were knitting a hat or a sweater or something, I could understand that, like, if your row gauge is off, you might not knit as many repeats or something, so that it wasn't as long. But something like this, how would you adjust your row gauge?
I mean, I think you could go up and down needle sizes, and that would
But then that's going to affect your stitch gauge.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how you do it.
I've never understood adjusting row gauge.
Yeah.
So, anyway, the reason I bring that up is because, like John said, the yarn, I believe, is dyed so that the colors hit the right spot of the
cowl.
The cowl, yeah. The right in the pattern. So yeah, so that's where we went first. They were and so I don't know that we said this specifically, but each shop has a knit pattern, a crochet pattern, custom dyed yarn, and then you get a button, and then Okay. So were you gonna say something else?
Nope.
Okay. So I just wanted to buy something and support their store because I love their store and they're close to us. But I bought this. This is the dyer is the Engineer.
Okay.
Which I know nothing about. It says Woolerton Estate Yarns, established 2021. The colorway is Jasper.
Okay.
It's fingering weight yarn. Okay. So it's their website is both in English and French.
Okay.
I haven't figured out where they're located, but it says Woolerton Estate Yarns is inspired by Victorian-aged fantasy with a pinch of modern-day culture. The Woolerton family represents the importance of chosen family and hopes to inspire newer generations of crafters. And so you've got kind of, what would you call those things? Victorian little pictures.
Portraits, cameos.
Maybe cameos. I thought the little tiny portraits, they were called something.
I don't know.
Anyway, Marie Woolerton, this is a picture of, is the founding member of the Woolerton family, and Zoe Woolerton, founding member of the Woolerton family. So it's kind of cute, little Victorian-ish. So this is their engineer base. It says Tweed fabrics originate from Great Britain and were traditionally used for outerwear for their durability and ability to withstand harsh climates. The likeness of the characteristics of Tweed material to an engineer's goal for projects made for a perfect match. I cannot, for the life of me, figure out where they're located.
Yeah.
But that's okay. So it's a beautiful color. I like the tweed. I don't know what I'll do with it, but...
Make socks.
Probably. I don't think I have any tweedy socks. So.
Right.
So that's what we got at Three Kittens Needle Art.
Mm-hmm.
Would you like to continue our story?
Sure.
Or am I forgetting something?
No, we're good.
Oh, keep going. Go to
okay,
the
then I
next
went
store.
to Darn It Anyway, which is a yarn store in Stillwater, Minnesota, about maybe 45 minutes from here.
Yeah, it's closer to 30
to
when
40,
there's no traffic.
depending on like whether you get caught up. It's right on the St. Croix River, which is the border between, right?
Yes, the border.
Between Minnesota and Wisconsin on the Minnesota side. And so it's this very cute little town right on the bluffs, stuff like that. And it's one of our favorite knitting stores, actually. It's really well run. And their theme was the Cottingsworth fairies.
Yeah, I can't remember the name of the fairies, but yeah.
Yeah, the fairies that the little girls did the paper cutouts and tricked everybody. And they had a special cowl, but what we got was...
It was actually a scarf.
Scarf. Same difference.
Seeing is believing.
Right. And what we got from there is they had... what we really liked was the yarn. They specially dyed for it, which was called... What was it called?
Oh, sorry. We each got a skein, and they were. It was fun because they had all the skeins out, and they varied by how dark they were and all that. This one's yours.
Yeah, so they're called deep fake because the Collingsworth Coddington fairies were a deep fake, basically.
Yeah.
And so this was it's merino cashmere, so 80% merino, 10% cashmere, 10% nylon. It's sock weight yarn, and so I got the really dark one because I really liked the. I liked it, and then the ones that were a little more...
I liked it that had a little more teal in it.
Mm-hmm. And some MacGuiver fiber.
So Fiber MacGyver is in the Twin Cities. Mm-hmm. Susie is the name of the dyer. So she says, my approach to color is often influenced by my travels and our northern Minnesota lake life. You can generally expect a classic yet quirky, sometimes even rustic vibe from Fiber MacGyver.
Yeah.
So cool.
Yeah. So I really liked this. It was like funny because we walked by and they had a big pile of this, and like, sometimes it's like yarn just like I want, and this was one I'm like, I want this one. So very cool.
Gosh, I just noticed.
Oh, those are kind of cool.
That's pretty cool.
So yeah, very fun. What else?
So they have a large store in an old brick building. Mm-hmm. They've expanded over the last couple of years, and they just have a great selection. And we went before COVID.
I don't remember. It might have been.
Every year they have a few different events that they do that are really cool. One is knitting the river, and it's you take a river boat on the St. Croix and. It's like a day trip. Mm-hmm. We did that once.
Yep.
Might do it again this year. And then they do a sweater camp.
Mm-hmm. Which I would like to do at some point. That seems really fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's really well well-stocked, well-run yarn shop.
But we got other stuff there.
Yeah. So, do you want to go first? I can go first.
You can go first.
Okay. So what I got, look, it came in its own project bag. So, interestingly enough, when we did the Knitting the River, they had kits for this pattern, which is called the Gresham Wrap, which is designed by Michael Vloedman, who's a local designer.
And he used to,
He used to work at Stephen B.
Stephen B, yeah.
I think. I did like a pair of his gloves once.
Yeah.
The really, it's like funny. They were one of the first
Keep going.
patterns that were knit, and like it was a learning experience because it was like picking up fingers and all that good stuff. But it was in learning age. But anyway, so they had actually had this pattern. These kits on sale at the last river cruise we went to. And I was like going back and forth about buying it, and then by the time I was ready to buy it, they had sold out. So I was very excited to see this. And it's a sort of stripy wrap, which will be fun. And it's blue sky fibers. So like these are the colors, and I like blue sky fibers. I like their this isn't a tone. What do you? Just like their single color, I really like. I did a multi-color hat with them, and so I'm excited to do that one. This thing, it'll be a fun, I think, long pattern, if that makes sense. Not long pattern, like something to knit on that'll take a while, and it'll be good TV travel knitting, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So very excited about that, and again, it came in its own project bag. Ta-da! So.
He is, on Ravelry, he is Michael Vloedman. I'll have it in the description, but he's got several patterns on, including this one on Ravelry.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Very fun. So, yeah, I'm excited to start that. And again, it's,
And Blue Sky Fibers is also in Minnesota.
Yeah. And so the nice thing about it is, I don't know if you can see in the picture, this is the
they can't see that picture.
No,
you have to point it to
in this picture or this picture, the background color is white, and I was a little trepidatious about doing something in white, but this kit, the background color is this nice grayish color.
That's cream.
It
looked gray in the store, but yeah, it's cream.
Anyway.
Yeah.
But like, so a little off-white. So
I thought it was gray in this. Maybe you picked a different one.
Could be.
But yeah, that's cream.
What is it? What's it called? It's called Highland
Driftwood.
Okay. So anyway, more to come on that as I start this one.
And did you say what the fiber content of this was? This is their wool stock, which we've talked about before and we've used before.
Yeah.
It is 100% fine Highland wool.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this is 150 grams, 370 yards. I have no idea. Oh, worsted. It said worsted on it. So cool.
Yes.
And I got. Oh wait, did you get anything else there?
No.
Okay.
Oh, we got something. You got something for me.
Where is it? Oh yeah, it's in here. So I bought. Did I? Oh, I got the 2 skeins of the Fiber MacGuiver, and then I just got some wool wash. Actually, this little bottle I'm going to give to my friend Tracy. Probably. Yeah, I don't know. I can't decide I'm going to give it to Tracy because that's a lot. She won't need that much. Anyway, and then John wanted me to buy a needle gauge.
You can never have too many needle gauge things.
Yeah, this is the state of Minnesota outline, and so John wanted this.
Yep.
Yeah. So, and then at the sorry, I'm trying to use my words. This is the is it?
Yep. The back, right?
It's the bag. I'm just looking to see. No, I was looking to see if it was kind of geographically correct, but it's not. It's just the different. Let me get this out of the way. It's just the names of the different stores. It's the bag for the Chop Hop. So yeah, for this year. Now there was another bag, like way back in our early episodes, where I talked about the first Chop Hop we went on. There was a similar bag like this, and I put all the pins on it.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of the point, is you put the pins over the star
as you get them.
But we only went to 3.
Yeah.
So cool. All right. And then after that, we went to the Yarnery, which is in St. Paul. It's on
Selby Avenue.
Selby? Is it on Selby?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, it's on
it
Selby.
used to be on. They moved.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's still in that same Cathedral Hill.
And the owner
area.
is named Scott. Same name as me, of course. So I remember that. But yeah, so you bought something there.
Yeah, I got. Apparently, I'm into kits these days because I don't like picking yarn choices. So I got a kit. It's a hat called Cathedral Hill Cap Kit. So it's a colorwork hat. Surprise, surprise, because I never knit those. And it's. Let me show the picture. This is what it's supposed to look like. Pretty straightforward.
Straightforward.
What?
I wouldn't say that's straightforward.
No,
it's beautiful, but it's not straightforward.
No, I'm looking at the color. Anyway, I'm looking at the chart. So it's funny because it's just a colorwork chart. Anyway, but it's Cathedral Hill.
It's color. I'm just saying straightforward makes it sound like it's boring and basic.
Yeah.
I don't know. To me, it's very cool.
Yeah. So
that's a good picture too.
Yeah. So anyway, you can never make too many colorwork hats. And these are the colors. Another blue sky fiber wool stock. Is
this wool stock? Mm-hmm. Oh, it's a 50-gram hank of wool stock.
Can you see the colorway? It is Wild Thyme, THYME.
Oh.
And then this is Malabrigo Rios, colorway Virgo. So.
Yeah. And I just realized I don't think we picked up the pattern at the Yarnery.
No, they had a pattern, and it was this. I think it was also. Did Scott do this one too? Who wrote you, Mr. Pattern? I'm assuming it's Scott because he does a lot of. But interesting.
Maria
Pranica.
Mary
Pranica.
Yeah.
So the pattern the free pattern at the Yarnery was one that Scott had designed. And it was a series of, you could take the kit and make like 3 different size hats with it, which they're really cool.
Well, you could make all 3 hats.
Right.
There was like a child's hat, a medium hat, like maybe a
older child. I think you could make all 3. You can make 3 hats with if you bought the kit.
You did a child's hat, a medium-sized hat, and the adult hat. Mm-hmm. I said you could make all 3.
Yeah, that's what I said.
No, you said you could make. It sounded okay. Whatever. It sounded to me like you said you could make one of the 3 hats.
Oh, okay.
I don't think that's what you said.
I said all of the 3 hats.
You didn't say that. Shut up. Anyway, so the 3 hats,
and they were very cool. We just didn't.
Yeah. It's just didn't grab us, and then they had I forget what the crochet pattern was, but the yarn was awesome. Mm-hmm. They had 1 main skein and then 3 smaller balls. Yeah, so it was very cool.
Did you buy anything there?
I did not.
That was the yarn shop we were walking around, and somehow we were walking around, and I think we were looking at yarn, and somehow Scott's like, how did the skein of yarn get into my hand?
Because I thought it was one you had given me to hold, but it wasn't one you needed, and the thing that was funny about it was it wasn't even a yarn I would pick up. It wasn't one that I liked. Yeah. So all I can figure is that I sat my stuff down, and then when I picked my stuff up, I grabbed that. So I'm like, but it was hopefully somebody wasn't wanting that skein of yarn.
But it was funny because you said that out loud, and like it got a big laugh. Everyone was like, "Oh no, how did the yarn get in my hand?"
Which in that case, I actually meant that. I wasn't being facetious.
Right.
So yeah, we had a good time. I think next year I would probably take a day off work, Thursday or Friday to do it, just because. They run out of the yarn, the custom dyed yarn.
And you don't. I think with we did 3 in about 3 hours, 3.5 hours. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's not for lunch too, but it's nice not to feel rushed and to make a sort of long day of it. If we'd gotten up earlier, we could have gotten more. But
yeah.
But I also think like at a certain point, there's diminishing returns, like visiting that many yarn shops in one day.
John,
I know.
That's not true. People are gonna flame you in the comments.
Right.
But part of it is, I think this is a good thing. I don't think this is a bad thing. But part of it is, like, you've got Darn It Anyway, which is in Stillwater, which is like a 30-minute drive. Then you've got, I think it's Northland.
There's one in Northfield.
Or Northfield Yarns, or I forget what it's called. But there's one in Northfield, which is another 30 minutes away.
Yeah.
So they're like an hour apart at least.
Yeah.
And then you've got one in Hastings,
Yep. Which
is kind of on the same side as Stillwater, but probably 45 minutes from Stillwater, or maybe 30 minutes from Stillwater. So they're kind of spread out. So the Yarnery is not too far from us. Three Kittens Needle Arts is very close to us. Stephen B and Harriet and Alice are the two closest to us. I think those are the two. If, like, maybe I drop you off after lunch, I drop you off, and then I might go to Stephen B and Three Kittens.
Well, I think it was kind of cool. Harriet and Alice. I think it was kind of fun because we were to justify our choices, as one does. We go to Stephen B and Harriet and Alice quite a bit.
Yeah.
And so it was kind of fun to go to the Yarnery, which you don't go to that often, and Darn It Anyway, which is kind of a fun trip.
Yeah.
So.
Cool. All right. Well, let's talk about.
Do you want to do one more? Oh, that'll be your projects. Your works in project.
Yeah.
Works in project. Works in progress.
Blah 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 blah.
Why don't I start? Because I've got my sweater, which will take 5 minutes.
Yeah.
So I think this is exactly where I was last time when I talked about this. This is the Alberta. I think. Oh dear. The pattern's somewhere, but it's the Alberta sweater vest by, I think it's Jared Flood, right? He's the Brooklyn Tweed guy. Yes, it's Jared Flood. So anyway, this is the one that it is basically knit for the most part. I just need to cut my steeks. And so thank you for everyone who gave me suggestions and links to videos. These are really, really helpful. What I've done so far, and I will talk a little bit about what I did, is I've marked the cut line on each of these with a basting stitch, I think is what it's called. And so it's been a bit of a process. So there are a bunch of ways to reinforce the stitches. So you cut right here, and then you reinforce the row of stitches on the side so it doesn't.
But you reinforce before you cut.
Yes. That seems like the correct order of operations. And so there are a bunch of ways to do it. The pattern suggests a crochet thing where you sort of chain through reinforcing the stitches. I tried that. It was a disaster. And then I was looking at a couple of tutorials, and they said for a wool sweater like this, the thing you want to do is, the most effective way to do it is to take some yarn that is also 100% wool, and you do a sort of back stitch embroidery thing to reinforce that. So I grabbed this yarn, which was kind of another, leftover skein that I had that was also 100% wool, and I practiced. So I got my initial swatches and back stitch and cut and got to the point where I felt kind of comfortable with it.
What were you cutting?
The swatches.
Oh, okay.
So I did that a couple of times because the swatches are like this, like maybe 1.5 inches, 2 inches. So it's like pretty easy to do the stitching. And so I got pretty comfortable with it. And yesterday, or the day before, I back stitched one of the sides for this one. And I don't know what happened, but half of it was really, really good and the rest of it was a disaster. So, and that was the easy seam. Like, this is the harder. These are going to be the harder seams. So what I'm going to do instead was my original plan is I'm actually going over, we have a neighbor, Emily, who is kind of a sewing whiz.
Well, she was a professional sewist, seamstress,
yeah.
She knows she's a professional.
Yeah, and so we are going to go have a little thing where she's just going to reinforce the seams with the sewing machine today, and then I'll do some cutting. So, I think it'll be I'm excited to do this. But yeah, but it was an interesting process learning that my embroidery. It was weird because like I was doing it and like this top part felt really weird while I was doing it, and then I realized like for some reason none of the stitches were catching. It was odd. Anywho,
this is so over my head.
Yeah. But yeah, thanks. I think people, a couple people gave me links from like last time, and those are really, really, really useful with it. So thank you for that. So, but anyway, more to come on that one. And then basically we cut here and then pick up the stitches for the armhole and the neck.
So, will the stitching be visible when you wear it?
No, because what you do is you make the
pick
cut.
Up the column on either side of the cut, and
that's what you pick up your stitches from. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Got it.
So.
Got it. Okay. All right. Well, I've got a finished object. They're wet because I just finished washing them. They're for my friend Tracy. They are just basic vanilla socks, but I wanted to knit some socks for someone, and she was interested. So one thing about them is I did do this one round with the heel and toe color, but that's just kind of funny. The one thing, I think the leg might be a little long. But it is what it is. And I don't know, I think maybe the foot might be a little long.
Oh my God,
too,
Scott.
because I made socks for Mom and I made socks for Aunt Helen, and both of them were too small. So now I'm paranoid that I'm always going to make them too small. And I know how to measure for socks and I know all of that, but sometimes when I'm sitting and knitting, I don't. I think they'll be fine.
Yeah.
But I'm going to give them to her tomorrow, and yeah, so we'll see how that goes. So the yarn, this is Viking Fiber Company is the blue, and then I don't know who the dyer maker was for the heel and toe color, but the Viking Fiber Company yarn is just awesome.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
The stitch definition and everything. Yeah. So yeah, they turned out great.
Excellent. So I have one more work in progress. Not very far along, but this is from the Knitting the National Parks book, which apparently was like funny. We were in the store in Stillwater and someone was talking about how they're knitting all the hats from this. So, and this is, I'm doing a pattern called, where do we open up without, let's see. Oh, wait, hang on. It's like page 86. Oh, there we go. So the pattern I'm doing is called Wind Cave. I don't want to. There's a better picture of it here, but I don't want to show the pattern. So, so anyway, it's a two-color pattern, just like the Wind Cave, and it makes almost like a leopard print. It looks like. So what I did not want to do a leopard print hat. I'm sorry. I apologize to the designer if that was not their intention. I think it's just the colors she picked too. So what I did is I kind of like sometimes where you take a colorwork pattern and do
variegated,
or kind of the opposite of what's done. So what I took is I took two skeins of yarn. This one is Peacock by Ken Yarn, I think.
I love his yarn.
Yeah. And I'd done something else with it. I can't remember what. And this is Banksy by Neighborhood Fiber Company.
Which is in Atlanta. Or not Atlanta. They're the ones that I bought when I went to D.C. They're like in Maryland or Virginia, or I think Maryland.
So they're both variegated. This one is a lot more variegated than I thought, but this one's pretty wild variegated. So the colorwork pattern is not as distinct, but I think it's pretty fun. I'm not super far into it, but sort of see what it's looking like. And I think it'll just be a really... It's not going to have, because...
Make sure you're showing it this way so that they can see.
Yeah. So it's not going to have the same... the pattern doesn't have the same definition as the original intention, but I kind of like playing with that sometimes. So yeah, and I always like knitting hats. I like colorwork hats are probably my favorite thing in the world to knit. So, but I really like how the two colors go together on the hat.
Yeah, for sure.
Even if it's not going to be, I don't know, I think it'll be really cool. Again, I'm, clearly not that far into it. So, but yeah.
And Nancy Bates is the designer. She's the one that wrote the book.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah.
All right. And what is this, a DK weight hat?
Yeah, these are both DK.
Okay. All right. So I am on to my next pair of socks. We went to Delaware, to Rehoboth Beach, and technically Milton, Delaware, to visit our friends who live in Milton, and which is near Rehoboth Beach. We met them. So these are folks that we met on the cruise that we did in Europe in December for the Christmas market. We met them and really hit it off, and so we went to visit them. I'm trying to remember what I was going to say about this. Oh, so we were in a new place, and so we wanted to check out yarn stores. And so it's kind of the DC area. Well, it's like Philadelphia, Baltimore, DC,
yeah.
like all these cities are right there close together because it's the East Coast. And so we ended up going just to one that was within close enough driving distance. And it was mainly a needlework store. It was huge, but it was mainly needlework. And then yarn was, it was kind of an afterthought. But, so the yarn, I bought a skein of yarn that was kind of a random, it looked cool to me, as Infinity Sock Line by Laine du Nord. Lanes du Nord, made in Italy. I don't know anything about this, but this is the label. And they had lots of different, I think it's basically all kinds of different self-striping yarns. So this is how far I am with it right now.
Super cool.
Yeah, and it seems to repeat in the same order, but the size of the stripes varies, which is pretty cool. So I'm getting ready to, actually I'm in the process of knitting the heel flap. So I just started the heel flap, and I'm in the middle of a row. But so it's very cool. I'm making them for my friend Steve, and this is what the whole skein looks like. But yeah, it's fun to knit with because of the stripes.
Yeah, for sure.
So and then let's see here. I think it's. Forget what the content is. A 70% wool, 75% wool, 25% nylon. 450 yards per 100 grams. 458 yards per 100 grams. So yeah,
lovely. And then I'm done.
That's what you've got. Okay.
Yeah.
So if any of you are familiar with Milton, Delaware, you probably are aware of Dogfish Head Brewery. And we went to the brewery while we were there. It was
super fun.
So much fun. It's a brewery and a distillery. And so I might have had a few drinks and then gone into their merch store and bought so much stuff that I got a free tote out of it. So now this is my project bag for this project. And so the project I'm going to show is one that I talked about last time, and I showed the yarn, but I hadn't done anything yet. So this is the Sugar Glider Cardigan by, it's Elevation Yarn Co. is the name of the yarn store and the yarn line, but designer is Joey Clavey.
Okay.
And if you remember if you watched our last episode, his husband is on TikTok and was making fun of his husband for being a knitter.
Following his dreams
to be a knitter while he is an accountant and did their taxes and, is the responsible one. So it's not a traditional cardigan. It's a wrap that you can put like a shawl pin in. and it's got this color is going to be the collar and the sides of the sides of the cardigan that come together, but it doesn't have sleeves where they normally would be. It's just a wrap. But then the part that goes down the front, that would be like the, what would you call that?
Like the
button band,
yeah.
But it's like
band.
really wide.
Yeah.
It becomes the sleeves. So when you put your sleeves in the button band,
Arms.
you don't, yeah, people don't have sleeves. When you put your arms in the button bands, they become sleeves, and then the what was the wrap becomes almost like wings.
Right.
And then this is the back bottom that kind of gives it some shape and kind of, it's almost like makes it a faux cardigan. It's like a faux cardigan back, because I don't know that you really need this, but it kind of gives it that shape in the back,
and it ties it together too.
And it ties it together, yeah. So because this is not this is as wide as it is. It's not the whole back,
yeah.
Because from here the wings come up.
Yeah.
So anyway, this is the back part. Then I started the brioche. So all of the wings, like the majority of the sweater, wrap, whatever you want to call it, cardigan, the majority of it is brioche. And so what I'm doing is I'm doing this color as the foreground color, I guess you'd call it, and then a bunch of crazy different variegated yarns as the background. And so I did that, but it was the first time I'd ever brioche knit. And I was enjoying it, but then I realized I did something wrong.
So what you did, because you're doing 2-color brioche.
Yeah.
And so in 2-color brioche, you do color 1. And
this is color 1.
So you color 1, and then you do color 2 without turning the work.
That's right.
And so what you did is you'd color 1, turn the work, did color 2.
Yeah, that's what I did.
So, which is an easy mistake, right? I don't think the pattern...
Well, the pattern did say that, but...
Right, unless you kind of...
I didn't... I mean, why would you knit a second cut? I mean, my brain was telling me, well, of course you turn your work, because you always turn your work.
Right.
You know, and so... so I had... So basically, I ended up kind of casting, or like starting those colors in one direction and then the other one in the opposite direction, which you can't do. Because I'm like, this doesn't look right. And so anyway, I haven't gone back to pick that back up just because we've been busy and all that, but I'm really, really excited to get that back underway. So this yarn, I mean,
Very
I'm
cool.
just obsessed with this yarn. This is the Farmer's Daughter yarn.
That you
Farmer's Daughter Fibers. I bought it at Dandelion Fiber Company, which is a newish yarn store here. Montana, 100% Montana and Wyoming. Somebody told me how to pronounce this. Rambouillet, I think.
Bahramu.
What?
It sounds like Bahramu.
I don't know what Bahramu is.
The secret code from Babe. Picking the Babe.
Oh.
Sorry.
Bahramu. No, this is Rambouillet. It's not Rambouillet. 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 So, this is elk antler, and the green is, I forget what the green is, but the green is bonsai. So anyway, I'm going to be picking up that this week, and then so I'm working on my socks for Steve Dahl, and then this sugar ladder cardigan, and then in my future is a baby blanket for our friend Katie. John works with her. She has 2 little boys, Russ and George. We call George King George. And Russ's aunt knit him a baby blanket, or a blanket. It's pretty big. And he calls it color blanket because it's I don't know if she did this, like, I don't know if she followed a pattern or what exactly, but it's all kinds of crazy different colors together, and it looks like a lot of it's brioche. And so Katie's like, we were talking about it, we were hanging out on Friday night, and she's like, I'm gonna have a problem because I don't think that Sky, who is their aunt, I don't think Sky is going to knit George a blanket.
Right.
And I said, well, I can knit him a blanket.
Yeah.
And so she's like, well, that's kind of why I brought it up, because if we don't have a knit blanket, then it's going to be a problem in my house.
Right.
And so, so John and I talked about it because John's like, oh, I can do it. Like after I'd already agreed to it and had talked about it to Katie for 15 minutes, John comes along and is like, I'll do it. And I'm like, back off, buddy.
That's okay.
So he's going to knit Russ,
a cardigan.
The older boy, a cardigan.
Yeah. So we were looking at his favorite color is purple. And so
Which is my favorite color.
I know. So we're looking at... So I think I'm going to look... I haven't picked a pattern yet, but I want to do a cardigan because that's easy for kids and stuff like that. And I want to do... Because I'm working on that huge colorwork cardigan that's in... It's the Thorn by Martin Story. I drag it out of the project bag every couple of months and do some work on it. But it's a seamed together part cardigan. And I'm a little nervous at the seaming. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to knit a seamed cardigan for Russ and learn how to seam it with a smaller baby cardigan. So.
Yes, I think that's a good idea.
Yeah.
And I've decided what I'm going to do is just take a bunch of different, like DK or, thicker yarn, probably not chunky, but thicker yarn, and knit what is the name of it? It's by Kay Jones from the Bakery Bears. It's her. I just did the other baby blanket I did, and I think I showed did I show pictures and talk about that on here?
Yeah. It's a bunch of mitered squares, right?
I think it's the miter square blanket. I think that's the name of it. But what Kay Jones' initial pattern is where you do mitered squares 3x3 in a fingering weight yarn. It's basically to use up fingering weight yarn that you've used for other projects. And so what I'm going to do, because I had success with another baby blanket that I did, is that I knit 4. So she does 3x3. I did 2x2 and then put a white border around it and then seamed them all together. What I'm going to do is take the colors and just do maybe like 5x6 or just, baby blanket or blanket size and just do all the squares touching one another and then put a border around that whole thing.
Yeah.
But it'll go pretty fast because I love knitting mitered squares. And it's a really fun pattern because you do one mitered square and then you attach it by picking up stitches or whatever, and it starts out like a flat cast on edge, and then as you do the mitered square it comes together into a square.
Right.
And so I'm going to do that with all of the different colors touching and then the border around that. So I'll be starting that soon too.
Are you going to seam them together or pick up from the edge?
Do you mean for the border?
No, so you do one square. Are you gonna?
Well, it's going to be like one mitered square.
Right,
like
right.
This
So
big.
you do one mitered square.
Then you pick up.
So then you're going to
pick up the stitches from here,
as opposed to doing a second one and seaming them together.
Well, so when the pattern calls for you to do 3x3, and you pick up the stitches as part of the pattern,
right?
And then you put a border around that, and then you piece the squares together, the blocks together of 3x3 with a border around it. Remember how I did it? It was 2x2.
Yeah.
Those 4 are all attached by picking up stitches.
Gotcha. And then you
pick up stitches to do the border around it, and then that makes a block.
Gotcha.
Almost like a quilt block, and then I seamed the blocks together.
Okay.
But I don't want to do any seaming on this one,
right.
So I'm going to do, and plus I want it to be kind of wild and colorful like Russ's blanket is.
Yep.
Which is what she requested. So yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
That'll be fun.
Yeah. So that's coming up in my future.
Lovely.
Yeah. I can't think of anything else that I've got in my mind, yeah. So, I think that's all for our knitting content, and now we're gonna, through the magic of television, transition to movie reviews.
Yay!
Okay, so the year is 1982, and 2 movies have come out. Well, kind of came out.
Right.
The worst movie kind of came out. We'll talk about that. But 2 movies have come out, Inchon and Gandhi. One was the best. and one was the worst.
Right.
And we're going to start with the best.
Okay.
And end with the worst.
Sounds good. So, Gandhi. About Gandhi. So, directed by Richard Attenborough, who is, I think, best known. He's also, he's only directed as like funny, so I'm like, oh, he must have done tons of films. He's directed like 12 films. But he's really, I think, best known for all his nature documentaries. I remember watching those growing up, like Planet Earth and stuff like that. And then also, he directed Jurassic Park, the first Jurassic Park movie.
Richard Attenborough directed the first?
No, that's not
that's
true.
Steven Spielberg.
That's Steven Spielberg. I'm sorry.
I was like, what?
He was in it.
So wait a second. I think I'm having one of those moments where my head explodes because I'm connecting dots.
Yeah.
So the guy that created Jurassic Park in the movie, the old guy, the old British guy, that was Richard Attenborough?
Yeah.
Okay, the reason that hurts my head is because I mean, you watch a nature documentary, you hear Richard Attenborough's voice, and it's like, it's almost like a cliche.
Right.
Like, people have done that voice to indicate
that it's
a nature documentary
a
la Richard Attenborough. That's the guy in the Jurassic Park movie?
I'm 90% sure. Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
So anyway.
So he directed
it.
Gandhi.
And apparently he'd been trying to do a film about Gandhi for several years, and this sort of in the 80s, the stars all aligned. So it's a 3.5-hour movie. There is an intermission. Richard Attenborough, right? That's what I was saying, not Robert.
I don't think you said Robert. I think you said Richard.
And it is a telling the story of Mahatma Gandhi. Is that the honorific?
The Mahatma was the honorific.
I think his first.
I'll look it up.
Yeah, which is a lot like his actual first name. So it covers his life from when he is a lawyer in South Africa in the 1890s to his death in the 40s, late 40s. 3.5 hours long. There's an intermission, and it basically won all the awards that year. So, Mahatma Gandhi.
Mohandas.
Oh,
was his real name.
Okay,
Mahatma is the honorific. Mohandas was his real name.
So, anyway, it's a really kind of really good biopic. Epic, I think, is the word that's used a lot for it. And kind of, it cost $22 million to make, which surprised me because it looks like it cost
billions.
And it's known for, Attenborough is known for his crowd scenes. So there are a lot of crowd scenes. It opens with Gandhi's assassination and the funeral, and the funeral scene had 300,000 extras in it, which is still a record. And I think probably will be a record because nowadays when they have crowd scenes, they just do the extra with CGI.
Yeah.
It got 11 nominations and won 8, including Best Picture, Best Director, and Best Actor for Ben Kingsley. So Ben Kingsley is the actor who played Gandhi. It seemed like he was relatively unknown at the time of this. And he is half English, half Indian, I believe. And his father was from the same province as Gandhi, which I thought was kind of cool.
Okay.
And he is really, really, really good. And just, it's like kind of funny because he does this historical figure for 50 years of their life, and the aging looks, it's uncanny, I think.
Yeah.
They were talking about when they're filming it, and they were filming it in the villages and stuff like that where things actually happened, people being freaked out because that was like Gandhi's ghost was walking around and stuff like that. It was such a accurate, not the word, but like it was very true to
he channeled is not the right word, but he
embodied.
Yeah.
So so I think really good movie. Cast of thousands. There were a couple of things that I thought was really, really funny. I took my reading glasses on. So it was almost one of those movies where like there were so many people in it and you kept recognizing people. So like Candice Bergen's in it. And there's a scene where John Ratzenberger is driving Candice
Cliff
from Cheers. So I'm like, oh, Cliff's driving Murphy Brown around. John Gielgud's in it. Martin Sheen's in it. Ethel Fugard, who is a South African playwright who wrote a bunch of anti-apartheid plays that I read when I was in high school and stuff like that. He plays... I
just got chills. He was the one that played the horrible
general. Yeah.
But in reality, he's a playwright
who's wrote like all these plays about apartheid in the 80s and 90s.
Wow, that's cool.
And so it's a little bit like, you know, when you watch a Harry Potter movie today and you see all these like British people, it was kind of like that. So like, it's Daniel Day-Lewis's first film credit. He plays like young South African thug too, which you're watching. I'm like, that looks like Daniel Day-Lewis. And it was. Geraldine James is in it, who is a British actress. And we know her from, she's in the Silo.
Yeah, the TV show Silo. She's the Mayor Johns.
Yeah. And Ian Charleston's in it, who is a British actor who was in Chariots of Fire, who died of HIV/AIDS in 1990. So that was really sad.
Oh, yeah.
And so I just remember, like, it was, I don't know, it's a very, very well cast movie, although it's a little bit sometimes you're like, oh, that person in that movie and stuff like that. And let's see. I don't know. I think it's a really good movie. I think it, you know, did a good job of telling the history. Ben Kingsley's performance is really, really good. And I think as someone, I saw it, I think on VHS when I was growing up. And it's kind of like the only exposure I'd had to that part of history ever, right?
Yeah, same with me, because I remember it being on TV and remembering, like, who is this guy? And I remember, I honestly did not realize, I didn't remember what his cause was.
Right.
I didn't remember that, because I was 5 when it came out, so I didn't remember that his cause was Indian independence from the British Empire. Yeah. And then I didn't understand what the fasting was about, because that's the other thing. Like, a week ago, if you'd asked me who Gandhi was, I remember him, you know, dressing as, you know, in the loincloth and all of that, and I didn't know why. I thought he was maybe... the problem was, it was like getting mixed up in my head with Mother Teresa, who also wore, you know...
plain spun stuff, yeah.
But I did not realize that the fasting was to bring forth change from his own people.
Yeah.
I thought that the fasting, the hunger strikes, had to do with trying to bring change with the British. And, I mean, it did in a kind of... in the larger scheme of things, but really the first hunger strike was to keep the people of India from being violent against the British, to because his whole thing was nonviolence, yeah, and to stop the Indians from attacking, the people from India from attacking the British. And then the second hunger strike was to bring change, or to bring forth the stopping of violence between the Hindus and the Muslims that live in India. So yeah, really good movie. I mean, I think it won all the awards, and for good reason. And yeah, I think it was, you know, I don't know much more to say about it. It's a good movie. I think it does a good job of not showing him as a human being, as opposed to like a living saint. You know, there's a couple of scenes where he yells at his wife, and he's like not always the nicest person, and I know that's important. But yeah, a couple of other things, like the other Best Pictures movies of that year were E.T., Missing, Tootsie, and The Verdict. What's Missing? It's a movie about someone...
who is, I think, in Chile or Argentina. It's an American couple and their son gets picked up in the Dirty War. I think it's Argentina, but it might be Chile in the 80s.
Okay. I never heard of that.
Yeah. Sissy Spacek and Jack Lemmon, I think. So yeah, I think I remember that year I saw E.T. and Tootsie in the movie theaters. Because you couldn't escape E.T. and I think my mom...
You were 7?
Probably 7 or 8, yeah.
Because E.T. is the first... I was 5.
Yeah.
E.T. was the first movie I ever have a memory of seeing in the movie theater.
Yeah.
I sat next to my granny. I remember that.
And then other movies that year that I remember are Victor Victoria, Annie, and An Officer and Gentleman.
I remember Victor Victoria watching that when I was older on TV and just being like, wait a second, that's...
Julie Andrews.
Well, but I didn't think of her as Julie Andrews because I was little.
It's Maria
so I was like, Maria from Gone with the Wind or
Sound of Music.
Sound of Music or...
Mary Poppins.
Mary Poppins, and I was very confused as to what that movie was about when I was little.
So yeah, very cool to watch that again.
Yeah, I'm glad we did, and that's why I love this movie review segment that we do because it kind of prompts us to watch stuff we would never. I mean, I would never think to sit down and watch Gandhi.
No. And it's interesting
when there's so many other things on TV that are new.
Yeah, and I think we broke it up. We watched like the first half one night and the second half the next night.
Yeah.
So.
All right. Well.
From good to interesting.
From good to not so good. So, the winner of the Golden Raspberry for Worst Picture that year was Inchon.
Sometimes with an exclamation point.
Sometimes with an exclamation point.
It makes you think it's a musical, but it is not.
It's not. And I have since found out that. Is it transliterated? Is that what it's called when you take something and put it into English letters? It's nowadays. So the movie was Inchon, but nowadays the city is transliterated as Incheon.
Okay.
Not that matters, but I got into an argument with my friend Greg about it on Friday night. He's like, "It's with an E." I'm like, "No, it's not." And he's like, "Oh, we're both right." So it was released in. So there's this weird thing about the release date because of the fact that it was so bad. But its official release date is September 17th, 1982. But I think I'll get to... Oh, it premiered in May of 1981. Mm-hmm. And I think that might have been in South Korea or...
Or is that the one in D.C.? I can't remember.
But the film was released theatrically in the United States and Canada in September of 1982 before being quickly withdrawn due to critical and financial failure. Okay, so quick synopsis. It's the Korean War and General Douglas MacArthur, played by Laurence Olivier, with really weird makeup and facial stuff that they'd done to him to make him look like MacArthur. Masterminds. They gave him like weird penciled on drag queen eyebrows, which was very strange choice.
He looked like a drag queen out of drag.
That's exactly what he looked like. Was a drag queen or like a mannequin whose face had melted.
Yes.
So, General Douglas MacArthur masterminds the amphibious invasion of Inchon in September 1950. Now, I'm not going to be able to do a good job of attributing where I got some of this information. So, it was the internet, and the internet never lies. So, just take that with a grain of salt. But there was discussion about the fact that, well, I should mention that the big scandal or the big controversy with this movie is that it was completely funded by Reverend Sun Myung Moon, who you might know as the founder of the cult The Moonies.
The Unification
Church.
Which is
their official name is the Unification Church. And they don't like being called the Moonies, and in fact they consider that a slur, but you might have heard of the Moonies.
Do you remember when there was that big conspiracy that crest that had a little moon logo on it?
I don't remember.
Okay,
that.
one of the toothpaste brands, either Johnson & Johnson or that, they had a little moon logo on it, and there's this big thing. They're secretly funded by the Unification Church.
Oh wow!
The big '80s rumor.
Well, so he the Unification Church, they tried to get funding from some Japanese banks. They weren't interested. They ended up funding the entire project. So one of the things that I read was that the director or the writer and Sun Myung Moon wanted there to be 3 love stories. 1 American and 1 Korean, 2 Americans and 2 Koreans. So, and this is where I'm going to need your help, because the love story between the 2 Americans was MacArthur and his wife, right? The 2 Koreans were the couple that were getting married,
right?
That she used her wedding dress
to do bandages.
To do bandages.
He got killed in the amphibious assault stuff.
Yeah, and then the American and the Korean was this major or something who was kind of the beginning of the movie, and he was going to leave his wife, had already told her that he was going to leave her. His wife was played by Jacqueline Bisset, and because he had a mistress that he was going to marry who was Korean. And so, wait a second, but they got back together. Yeah, so they're the 2 Americans, but I can't remember who the 1 American and the 1 Korean was.
I think he was in both of them.
Oh, I thought they were... Okay, anyway.
It
doesn't matter. So,
it
doesn't. Yeah, it really doesn't. So, the cast, like I said, Laurence Olivier was Douglas MacArthur, Jacqueline Bisset was the woman I just mentioned, and then Richard Roundtree, who's Shaft, was a somewhat... like a middle important... supporting character.
He was involved with a Korean woman, so maybe that's another one of the...
Oh, that might have been it. The American.
But like, if it wasn't given much screen time.
Yeah. Okay. So the director of the movie was Terrence Young, who was known for directing 3 of the early Bond films. So the first Bond film was Dr. No. This was in the 60s. He had directed Dr. No, Thunderball, and From Russia with Love. Now, however, this was in the late 70s, early 80s. So before this movie, he directed a movie called Bloodline, which I didn't see any information. I don't know what it is. Didn't really see any information about it. But then he directed this, which was the enterprise was reputedly financed by the Reverend Sun Myung Moon's organization to the tune of $40 million. That's not adjusted dollars. The film critic Vincent Canby in the New York Times referred to the picture as hysterical and foolish, the most expensive B movie ever made. Then after this, he directed a movie called The Jigsaw Man, which was a financially troubled production and was a predictably plotted spy thriller. The film, although it was completed in 1982, was held back and not released until 2 years later. So the movie itself was $46 million to make it, the production cost, and the worldwide gross was $5 million. And so they lost about...
And it's never really been released
I
since.
am getting to that,
I'm sorry.
dear. I sat there and was trying to be very good during your movie segment.
I get so excited.
So, as my friend John was saying, as my husband John was saying,
as my roommate
John was saying, I was going to say cohort or that's some other word. Colleague. That's what I was going to say. As my colleague John was going to say. So it never received a home video release. And it was broadcast, and how we watched it was on YouTube. It was broadcast on cable on a network called the Good Life?
Yeah, Good Life Network or something like that.
I'm finding it. I copied it. Good Life Television Network, which was owned by the Unification Church. So they broadcast it on cable. It was then recorded off of that and posted on YouTube, which was how we watched it.
And so the quality, I don't know, maybe it was really well shot and looked beautiful when they shot it, but like...
Well, except that one of the things I read was that was part of the problem, and like there were I think it was the scene Was it the amphibious invasion?
Yeah.
Or there was some scene where there were these planes coming over and bombing, and they were cardboard cutouts, and they said that you could see the strings holding the cardboard cutout airplanes.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So, and then it's been called by a lot of people as the worst film of all time.
Mm-hmm.
I have thoughts about that
Yes.
that we'll get to. So other nominees for the worst film that year were Annie, Butterfly, Megaforce, and The Pirate Movie. Now, Annie was also nominated for Best Picture, wasn't it?
No.
Oh, I thought
best. It was one of the other things. It was nominated for best song. I don't know.
Oh, I thought when you
it was
listed
not.
yours, it was. Okay.
That was the other notable movies of the year.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. So the other nominees for worst film were Annie, Butterfly, which I've never heard of Butterfly. Have you?
Butterfly is the one that Pia Zadora won a Golden Globe for, and it was a big scandal because basically her husband or boyfriend at the time basically paid everyone a lot of money to get her the next best newcomer movie, best newcomer award, Golden Globes, and everyone's like, why is she getting a reward for this performance?
Okay.
So,
Megaforce.
don't know.
And The Pirate Movie, which that rings a bell, but I don't.
But it's not the Pirates of Penzance, is it?
No.
Yeah.
It's called The Pirate Movie.
Okay.
So I talked about the fact that it was funded by Sun Myung Moon and the Unification Church, and a couple funny tidbits that I picked up. One was they interviewed Laurence Olivier, and they said, "Why are you making this movie?" And he's like, "Well, people ask me why I'm playing in this picture. The answer is simple: money, dear boy. I'm like a vintage wine. You have to drink me quickly before I turn sour. I'm almost used up now, and I can feel the end coming. That's why I'm taking money now. I've got nothing left to leave my family but the money I can make from films. Nothing is beneath me if it pays well. I've earned the right to damn well grab whatever I can in the time I've got left." And man, so he got paid $1 million, not adjusted, for the movie. And then the budget...
He sued for overtime?
The budget... So the movie originally cost like $18 million or $20 million, something like that to make. And then they spent $22 or $24 million recasting things.
Or reshooting them because
Sorry, I said recasting. I meant reshooting.
Because one of the actors died in the middle of it, and so they had to reshoot and cut a lot of stuff.
Well, and then they didn't feel that the crowds were big enough, and so there's a scene where Jacqueline Bisset has picked up these poor orphans and is trying to get to the southern tip of Korea.
Yeah.
And she's driving this limo, and there are these crowds of people, and they didn't feel that the crowds were big enough. And impressive enough. So it's like 3 minutes of the movie. They eventually went to Ireland and filmed parts of it with a backdrop, with crowds projected onto the backdrop.
Oh my God.
And it cost $3 million or something like that just to film those scenes to make the crowds look bigger.
Wow.
But anyway, he sued, I think, for another $1 million because of all the overtime and extra shooting and stuff. The movie, I already talked about that. The one other thing that was kind of interesting was the U.S. Department of Defense, was kind of excited about making this movie, and they supplied 1,500 American troops that were already stationed in South Korea to be extras. And however, and it says at a cost of approximately $77,000. I don't know if that means it cost the Department of Defense $77,000, if they got paid $77,000. I don't know exactly what that means. But it says when they found out that it was being funded by the Unification Church, they withdrew their support and asked all the credits to the Department of Defense to be removed. And then I think my favorite tidbit of all is that in 1978, so this was a few years before making the movie, they were trying to figure out how to make it because at this point, Reverend Sun Myung Moon had created a film production company, and they're like, well, should we do a story about the life of Elvis? And they're like, no. Then they're like, well, should we do a movie about the life of Jesus? And then they're like, no. So then they decided to do one about the Korean War, specifically about Inchon, and so they called up psychic Jean Dixon, and they said, can you please communicate with the spirit of General Douglas MacArthur? And she did, and she said that his spirit endorsed the production of the film.
Lovely.
So the best performance, this was one of the things that we...
Oh, which I did not do.
Yeah, that's okay.
So.
Best performance, I think, in the movie were the kids.
In the car.
Because, come to find out, the kids that were extras that actually, like, spoke were members of the Unification Church Children's Ballet Troupe or something like that. And so they were kind of forced to do this movie. And so I think for that reason they get credit as having the best performance because nobody else really...
I thought Laurence Olivier was kind of weirdly compelling.
In a scenery chewing kind of way.
And like, you know, okay.
Yeah. And then the worst performance... I think maybe... Oh, gosh, I don't know. I think I'm going to give that to MacArthur's wife.
Okay.
Who just kind of like... I don't know if she was on, like...
she was just tired that day.
Yeah, she was just like, oh, honey, I'm going to iron your suit, and then I will see you later. She was a little bit of a cardboard cutout of herself. And I think she's probably a famous actress. Yeah, but I didn't know who she was. Okay. Then knitting or fiber content.
No. Oh, I forgot. So knitting and fiber content, Gandhi the movie is full of it.
Oh, that's right.
Because, one of Gandhi's thing was like, not relying on cloth manufactured in Britain. And so he was like all about homespun cloth and stuff like that. So there's a lot of scenes of people spinning.
Yes. And then he teaches people to spin. His wife teaches him to spin.
Right. And they all had to learn. So that's actually... all the actors who were spinning in the movie had to learn how to spin.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
And so Ben Kingsley said the hardest thing was learning how to spin and talk at the same time.
Oh, sure.
So, anyway, so...
so there wasn't any that in this film. Any personal history with the film? We talked about that with Gandhi. I'd never heard of this movie. For obvious reasons, nobody's ever heard of this movie. My grandfather, I think... was in Korea. I gotta ask my mom about that because I think her dad. I can't remember if her dad went to Korea or if he just did stuff in the United States.
He was in the Air Force, right?
Yeah, both my grandfathers were.
Yeah.
But it was before they joined. Before it was the Air Force. It was the Army Air something. I don't know, but I have to ask my mom because I remember him. There's some connection to him in the Korean War because he was too young to be in World War II, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
But anyway, I got to talk to my mom about that. And then our last question that we typically discuss is, did it deserve the award it received? So I think that this perfectly is summed up by a 2009 review done by Phil Hall for Film Threat, which I don't know if that's a website or what, but it says... Phil Hall disagreed with the characterization of the film as the worst ever made. And the quote is, "I was genuinely surprised. This is hardly among the very worst films of all time. That's not to say it is a good film.
Right.
It is a dull and forgettable movie, and I would never recommend it. However, its reputation for being among the bottom of the cinematic barrel is wholly undeserved."
I think it's... the reason I think number one is because the whole financing from the Unification Church... and then how much money it lost.
Yeah.
It's like Cleopatra is a good example of that. That movie was like lost a lot of money, but you watch it, it's not a bad film.
Yeah.
I also think Laurence Olivier's performance is, I said, like, weirdly compelling.
Yeah.
And so that kind of makes... I think it's got a lot of stuff, like it's got a big name actor doing a kind of crazy performance, lost a lot of money, not a good film... really, yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of an infamous film, I guess.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it, which is what a lot of the Razzies are. But I think what this reviewer was reacting to was people then and since saying it's the worst movie ever made or, things like that. And I think for all of the reasons you just said, it gets put into... But I would say somebody else said something about it being the most expensive B movie ever made. Yeah. I think that's a good way to... I think one of the things that was weird about it was that there was all of this... So one of the things that the Unification Church was trying to do by making this movie was how God loved America and God loved South Korea, and so God made the war.
And God gave his only son, Douglas MacArthur.
So there were all these like scenes where Douglas MacArthur would say something, and then there'd be a painting of Jesus on the wall, and it would zoom in on the picture of Jesus, and so it was kind of that. And there's
like pivotal made up thing. So there's this whole thing with we need to get the lighthouses going, which is made up. And at one point, like it's a countdown. They've only got like an hour, and the lighthouses need to be up, and like MacArthur is stalling. He's like, God just needed a little more time to do that.
Yeah.
So it was definitely religious overtones, which were a little odd.
And it wasn't like, I mean, that obviously doesn't make a movie bad. I mean, you know, and you know, it was heavy-handed in a way that General Douglas MacArthur wasn't. There's no.
Because I was reading about him.
It was weird.
MacArthur, and like. Maybe it was buried somewhere, but like, it didn't seem like he was this deeply religious person. At least nothing I can find in Wikipedia seemed to say that.
And he might have been, but I don't know that he was like.
Well, I mean, so
having all of his having the Joint Chiefs all stare at the picture of Jesus during Joint Chiefs meetings.
And like I think again, I couldn't find any. There's a thing where he's like, I'm going to make a big announcement, and I have something really important to say. And he does the Lord's Prayer. Yeah. Again, I don't know if that actually happened or not, but it was a little weird.
Yeah.
Anyway.
And I think that was some of what the movie had received from a criticism.
Yeah, but I would say if you had turned on this TV, if you'd turned on the Good News Radio Hour television network, and not known anything about it, and you're like, well, just watch what's on, you'd have been like, this is kind of okay.
You'd have been like, this is weird.
This is weird, and it's not good, but
be like, wait a second, isn't that Shaft?
Right.
Wait a second, isn't that Jacqueline Bisset? Wait a second, that looks kind of like Laurence Olivier, but like his face melted.
Right. And I think
he's got drag queen eyebrows.
I mean, I think nothing else. We sort of did two historical epics. And the one thing that was kind of cool about this one is, so like my knowledge of the Korean War is MASH.
Yeah.
That was all I knew. And so watching this movie made me read a lot more about the Korean War, and the Battle of Inchon is actually super cool. Yeah. Like what they did and how they planned it, and it's really cool. So like I think
and the risk that they took, and how that's a really good point. I hadn't thought about that, but like I didn't realize that the North Korean I mean, really there was just one stronghold left in Korea. And then because of the invasion of Inchon that cut off the supply lines and everything, they were able to get back to the 43rd parallel. 38th parallel?
I don't know.
Or whatever parallel.
Yeah, but that was interesting.
Oh, 43rd is the
Mason-Dixon line?
No, it's the I don't know if it's the 43rd parallel, but it's the
it's the 49th parallel, which
49th parallel is the one that goes through Minnesota,
and
where that distillery is.
Yeah.
Yes, the 49th, yeah. So,
all right.
Anyway, so that was it. So we'll hopefully be... Oh, shoot. I was about to end the podcast. No, we got to do our year.
Okay.
Okay. So I'm going to pull up the years we've already done.
Oh, do you have a...
Yeah, I have a...
little thing already.
Well, I put it in the description of every episode.
Oh, we've got time.
Okay, so we've done all these. Okay. So you're always good at remembering...
It's 1981.
Okay, hang on. Let me get there. Okay, 1981 to 2023.
Yep.
Okay. 2020.
Have we done that?
We have not.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Scott gets to feed me the movies.
What would be your guess of 2020? So that's COVID. What was the best year? What was the best movie in 2020?
No, it would have been the year...
Oh, it would be 2019. It would be the year before COVID.
No, it is 2020. So we do the... Oh, God. We do the year release, and the awards would be 2021. We have this fight every time.
I know we do.
So yeah,
I'm gonna trust you because you're much more.
So
So we're doing 2020, technically 2021 for the year, for the movies in 2020.
Yes.
I should cut all the times we've had that conversation and splice it together.
Right.
Okay.
I have no idea.
Okay. I've never even heard of this.
Okay. The best movie or the worst?
The best. It looks depressing.
What is it?
It stars Frances McDermott.
Oh, Nomadland.
Nomadland.
Yeah. It's supposed to be really good.
Okay, and you haven't seen it?
I have not seen it.
Okay.
It's, I forget the director, but she's the one who did The Eternals. I would say Chloe Zhao, but that might not be right.
Hang on, I'm going to look up. So I'm going to read... A woman in her 60s, after losing everything in the Great Recession, embarks on a journey through the American West, living as a van-dwelling, modern-day nomad.
Yeah.
Directed by Chloe Zhao.
It's supposed to be really, really good. I'm excited.
Okay.
And I think the worst movie is... yeah.
So the worst movie... was directed by Brandon Howes and Mike Lindell.
Okay. Oh, that's the My Pillow guy.
Okay. It's called Absolute Proof.
Mm-hmm.
My Pillow CEO Mike Lindell's film claiming a Chinese cyber attack flipped the 2020 election.
Oh, Jesus.
I'm not sure I can watch that. I'll be honest.
We'll see.
Because what are the other nominees for worst picture? I'm not sure I can stomach that.
Yeah.
I can't. Plus I don't want to give any money to a conspiracy theorist whack job.
Right.
Golden Raspberries.
Well, and it's a very weird year for movies.
Okay, other nominations were 365 Days.
Okay.
Doolittle. Fantasy Island.
Okay.
And Music.
Okay. Not heard of any of those.
365 Days is a 2020 Polish erotic thriller.
Oh, that's the one that was on Netflix and is all sexy and stuff.
Directed by Barbara, and then a Polish name that I can't pronounce. Based on the first novel of a trilogy by a Polish person. The plot follows a young Warsaw woman in a spiritless relationship falling for a Sicilian man who imprisons and imposes on her a period of 365 days, and then it cuts off.
Okay.
Doolittle is the Robert Downey Jr.
Oh, Dr. Doolittle.
Dr. Doolittle. Fantasy Island is about
Fantasy
Island, but it's a supernatural horror film.
Okay.
Serving both as a horror, reimagining, and a prequel to ABC's 1977 television series.
Okay.
And then Music is a musical drama film directed by singer-songwriter Sia. The film was co-written by Sia and Dallas Clayton and stars Kate Hudson, Leslie Odom Jr., and Maddie Ziegler. It marks Sia's feature film directorial debut.
Okay.
The film follows Zoo, a newly sober drug dealer who becomes... and then it cuts off.
Yeah. Okay.
So I'm going to go ahead and say we're not going to watch Absolute Proof. I can't.
Can we watch Fantasy Island instead?
We can watch Fantasy Island instead.
Okay,
Okay, we're going to pretend that was the worst
Yay!
All right. So, thank you, everybody. Hope you enjoyed it. As always, we hope to be back soon in 2 weeks. And, have a wonderful day.
Right.
Bye.
Bye.